Johnny Depp's libel lawsuit against The Sun, which is a British tabloid that published an April 2018 article that called him a wife beater, has finally concluded. This whole thing has been a shit show, pun intended. He literally alleged that she shit in their marital bed to get back at him, and I believe there were even pictures or photographs of the feces in the bed. This whole thing was just absolutely crazy, basically, all relating to his ex-wife Amber Heard. She has been alleging that he abused her in their marriage and was super jealous, basically adversely affected her career. He claims that she was the one abusing him, and that her false allegations cost him many hundreds of millions of dollars. I believe he alleged cost him $750 million worth of work that he missed out on because people didn't want to work with him. All of these allegations sort of bubbled up right around the Me Too era or slightly before, but then this kind of got sucked into that as well. Johnny Depp has taken a huge loss, I guess, in how bankable of a star he is, considering many people believe he's a wife beater. So anyways, they both presented the evidence. It might as well have been her because, of course, in a lawsuit like this, the defendants, part of their position or their main defense is that, hey, this is stuff that actually happened. It's the truth. The dude is a wife beater. And then they're presenting lots of evidence from Amber Heard to support their position, right? So ultimately it became almost like a lawsuit of him against her, okay? Because all of their evidence that they're presenting is related to things that she's saying about him. So they're going down the whole list of all of her witnesses, all the people that can sort of chime in and try to support her position. And his position, of course, is that it's not true and that she's actually the one who's abusing him. All the things that were stirred up in this made both of them kind of look pretty bad in various ways, made both of them look like very unstable people. This was a complete airing of dirty laundry, literally shitting in beds and writing in blood and all sorts of other things and just nasty things that they said to each other. A very disgusting relationship on many levels, right? Well, the thing is that he's sort of been ostracized in a way and maybe mischaracterized as a quote-unquote wife beater if, in fact, she's the one who was abusive towards him. Now, there has some evidence already came out basically sort of making her look like she at least was abusing him at the same time that all this was going on. So who's to say really that he didn't do anything to her? But at the very least, this isn't a stereotypical situation where, he was just being abusive to her and she's like this innocent character. She's definitely seems to be a very unbalanced person, violent person, unreasonable person. And so it's a very murky and weird situation. But I think overall, regardless, now obviously he'd probably like to win this case because I think there's a small possibility that he could try to recoup some of his losses in work, although that doesn't really seem to be a very strong possibility. I'm not an expert in UK law, although I am a licensed attorney in the state of California. So I have somewhat of an understanding of this. I've already actually in the past, for past stories, looked into defamation lawsuits in the UK. So I'm somewhat familiar with this kind of situation. It's a lot easier for a person to make one of these lawsuits or to file one of these lawsuits in the UK as opposed to in the United States. Like in the United States, a case like this probably wouldn't go anywhere because it's a he said, she said, and some newspaper published an article which is basically sort of taking one person's side in a situation. Very difficult to prove defamation in that kind of situation. However, in the UK, a bit easier because the burden of proof is shifted to the defendant, right? So they have to sort of prove that it's truthful or that it was reasonable. And, you know, from an outsider's perspective, it kind of looks like it would be easy for them to prove that it's reasonable, considering these are all the allegations that she made. And it's not like a newspaper has to actually function like a court of law in terms of determining all the facts and figuring everything out to say, you know, to basically make like a legal type of judgment. I would think that it would be enough for her to make all kinds of allegations and for them to write an article based on that. But who knows, right? And definitely the evidence that they presented in terms of this being truthful or all of her allegations being truthful, I don't think that they proved that she was being truthful. It looks very murky, looks very shady. She changed lots of her dates. She didn't seem credible. There was lots and lots of evidence that was presented where the whole thing just looks very confusing, and there's really no certainty in the matter. But who knows how it's going to shake out. But yes, obviously he'd like to win. Maybe he could win some money. At the very least, he could say that he won this lawsuit and proved in a sense that he's not a wife beater. I mean, obviously that's going to do something to like rehabilitate his reputation, right? To some level, to some degree. But I think more than that, or at least, well, overall, yeah, more than that, the PR in this situation is probably most valuable in terms of just rehabilitating his character by sort of putting forth all of this evidence of Amber Heard being an unreliable person to listen to, and basically to show that, you know, she's lying about all these things, that she was actually very abusive and very twisted, and it's not just simply a situation of a man assaulting a woman, right? Which is basically what this was, sort of what she's tried to present this whole relationship as. Like, he's just like this stereotypical abusive male, right? So in the aftermath of this, I think that this actually kind of does help him. And I think that's, you know, not necessarily because something was absolutely proven, but I think it gives the public a greater picture of what was going on in this relationship, that this relationship was very volatile, that she was not like this nice, innocent party. It doesn't prove necessarily that he never did anything wrong or that he's 100% innocent, but it really does paint a more accurate picture of what was going on, that these were two very volatile people, very dramatic people. You could tell from, you know, how they talked about their marriage, as well as recounting things that they had said to each other. And these are very dramatic people. They're actors. So it's like their drama was probably 1,000 times more dramatic than most people's drama, because they're literally trying to take it there and like egg each other on and trying to be as nasty as possible, which isn't to say that in general people can't have these kinds of volatile relationships and be super nasty to each other. But I think these people in question are pros, and they really took it to that next level. So there's all sorts of just exaggerated things and, you know, threats and nasty things that are being thrown back and forth at each other, and all sorts of like weird acting that's going on. But I think this overall helps him because it doesn't leave us just thinking that he's this stereotypical abuser. And actually beyond that, there's really no concrete proof. Like, all of the allegations that she made that he was so abusive and he did all these things to her, there really was no hard proof of that. Their best arguments against Johnny Depp in this were related to him being an alcoholic and a drug user and abuser, right? Which was to say, well, he was so drunk and he was so high that one can just imagine that he did all these things. Well, the problem is, in a situation like this, you're not supposed to leave it up to just an imagination. You're supposed to have actual proof that, because many people could be drunk or could be on drugs. That doesn't necessarily mean that he did all the things that they claimed that he did. And one would also think that with all the allegations made against him, that he was like this horrible person, he did all this bad stuff, that there would be some proof of it. There really wasn't any proof of it. As this whole thing unfolded, there were many articles published about how this was so bad, and this is a case of misogyny because he's putting her on trial and saying that she's bad and all this stuff. Well, that's the whole point of it. The whole point of it is who's telling the truth. Now, if the truth is that she was abusive, is he not supposed to say that? Is he not supposed to tell the truth? Is he not supposed to flesh out the truth? And it's just so weird and bizarre how some of these things get twisted in that way to say that somehow him defending himself against a woman by virtue of her being a woman makes him a misogynist, or this is evidence of a misogynistic system, or who knows what, right? That is a huge stretch, as well as some articles also claiming something about, various women-hating group members, like some groups of people that allegedly hate women or something, them supporting him in this matter. And that, what does that mean? Why does that have any relevance? If it's a situation where some fringe group or some supposedly woman-hating group, let's say members of a woman-hating group supported him in this lawsuit, why does that take away from the truth of this matter? People like that would gravitate to a situation like this, or maybe any situation where there's a dispute between a man and a woman. That doesn't necessarily mean, just because if he has some support or some supporters who advocate bad things or negative things or even misogynistic things, that doesn't mean that colors the lawsuit against the son or the underlying issues that are related to that. It has nothing to do with what the truth is. I think to a degree, this is going to make him look less of that stereotypical abuser. And it really calls into question Amber Heard's character and whether she's a truthful person. So I think it will help him to a degree. But to what degree? Who knows?